Welcome to the Prove It podcast, where we let go of proving to the world and start proving what's possible. I'm your host, Michaela, prosperity coach, purpose-driven entrepreneur, and woman of faith. This is for the ones who dare to prosper differently, who choose calling over conformity, purpose over pressure, and alignment with divine design over hustle culture. Through honest conversations and transformative stories, we'll explore what happens when you stop chasing approval and start becoming who you were always meant to be. Because your worth isn't up for debate, but how you live, that's where you prove it. I am so excited to have Erin Anderson on with us today. Well, Erin is a business and boundary coach. And so explain what you do there and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually I got started, I think that's a little easier route to go, and then I'll explain like why I'm here. But I actually got started about 12 years ago coaching women through betrayal trauma. Because number one, that was something I had personally gone through, and I realized that there was other traumas that were mixed in with that betrayal trauma. I had healed it completely by myself because really honestly healing the process of betrayal trauma is kind of healing the cracks inside of yourself, coming back together to you, coming back into your being, right? Like that's literally what betrayal trauma healing is. And I realized that as I was doing this betrayal trauma healing and helping my clients and things, I realized a couple of things. Number one, as they were healing their traumas, whatever they invested in with me, they turned around and doubled or tripled their investment and never even talked to me once about money. I never talked to them about money, and they weren't getting coaching anywhere else about money. It just naturally happened. And I was like, what's going on there? There's something there. And so I started diving into it, and I started realizing that as they were healing, they were setting certain boundaries, like even subconsciously, right? That led them to more success, more freedom, building businesses, etc. And I'm also really passionate about helping women find freedom in all areas, and money is a big area that they need freedom about too. And so I shifted into business and boundary coaching because number one, I really do want, like I said, women to come back to themselves, like really, really heal those fractured pieces of themselves, to become whole. And in order to do that, there needs to be some wholeness in finances, wholeness in self, wholeness in the way that they perceive the world around them, because that tends to help them create that safety that they need as a woman. So that's kind of where that's why I shifted and became what I am today.
I love that so much. And I can resonate with that, where I've really gained like an appreciation for the fact that everything impacts everything else in life. And I've really come to learn that the past couple of years, going through my own health struggles and realizing that, oh my goodness, like I'm dealing with this, and now it's impacting every other area, of my life, and everything is just so connected. And so I love that you touch on that. I feel like you can relate to that in a sense too. I know that you've kind of shared, just in preparation for this, as going through, like your Facebook, and you've kind of touched a little bit on experiencing, I don't know if it was physical symptoms or like mental health issues.
Both.
Because you weren't prioritizing all the areas, or like self-care. And so can you speak to that and kind of share more of your story there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually both mental health and physical health symptoms. I say that really energy shows up in four ways: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, right? That's how our energies are actually defined. That's how it grows. That's how it shows up actually on other people's radars, and actually on scientific radars, is in those four areas. When I was feeling depressed, alone, abandoned, actually suicidal too, I was quite suicidal. All four of those areas were in the red, major, major, major in the red, right? And like I said, I didn't realize, like I was so focused on what everyone else was doing, what everybody else was saying, like how everybody else was showing up in my life, that I didn't realize how I was showing up for me. It never even occurred to me. I had grown up in a home where there was narcissism, and that narcissism made me play small, made me or told me I had to play small, I should say, told me that I had to hide myself, told me that I had to people please just to keep the peace, right? And so those are things, even today to some degree, it kind of go in and out of my subconscious, but I didn't realize I was playing that game still. And in order for me to feel that deep, deep level of betrayal and focusing on what everybody else was doing and angry about how everybody else was showing up, I didn't realize that I was betraying myself in the process. Because here's the deal, even though like people can be not nice, I'm just going to say that, and probably even dumb that down a little bit because sometimes not nice wasn't quite far enough. Even though people can be not nice, the one person that you can never leave is yourself. That is the one person, right? I can leave my husband. Not saying I want to, but I could do that. I can leave my mom. Again, saying not saying I want to, but I could do that. I could leave my dad. I could leave my kids. I could leave my business partners. I could leave everyone in this world, go live on a mountaintop, never see another human again, or out in the middle of the ocean, like wherever it is, never see another person again. The one person I still have to live with is me. And even in death, like we separate from the body, but we still have to live with ourselves. That's the deal. And this is why betraying ourselves just to make somebody else happy or to get somebody else to calm down or quote unquote stop rocking the boat or blaming ourselves for the way somebody else decides to show up for life is such a betrayal. This is why it fractures us, is because we have to literally tear a piece of ourselves off or tear ourselves even in half just to make someone else happy or to get someone else to behave better or to get someone else to XYZ. It's a type of control, even subconscious. It's a very subconscious type of control because when somebody's freaking out at us, it makes us feel not safe, right? And when you've grown up in the society that we have today, when somebody's freaking out at you and you want that safety, we tend to think the best thing to do is to rip a part of ourselves off just to get them to calm down. But the truth of the matter is, it really comes back down to our boundaries, anchoring in who we truly are, allowing somebody to have whatever reaction they need to have because that is part of their learning experience, right? And still just standing in our, that's a very interesting perception that you have. It's not true for me. And, if you want to continue having that perception, that's and then that makes you happy, that is your business. I don't judge you for that. However, I'm not going to buy into it. Having that type of a mentality is key in bringing all these pieces back in, loving all of those pieces back in, and allowing everybody else to do what they need to do or however they need to react. But you don't abandon yourself anymore.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And how do you build that self-trust? How do you start rebuilding that? And what did that look like for you? What are the things that you do to intentionally grow that self-trust?
That is a really good question. And you're actually hitting on one of the biggest topics I talk about in my courses. And that's what I call being your own best friend. So in order for me to explain this, I have to kind of dial back to where I was at prior to me, starting my coaching business, prior to me actually being where I'm at now with boundaries. And I had to ask myself one day, like, what is it that I really wanted? Okay, that is like the first question that you really need to ask yourself, because if you're living in the anti-dream and basically like what everybody else is doing that you're not okay with, but yet they won't stop it, etc., like husband's looking at pornography or my kids are coloring on the couch or, right? Mom's not accepting me. She's telling me I'm a bad mom again. Yeah, those are not okay. Like, totally agree. But I was so focused on what I didn't want that I never stopped to ask myself, what is it that I actually did want? Well, I want my husband to actually consider me, to be considerate of me, to actually see what I do every single day, to be appreciative of me, to work his butt off on his problems that are affecting me, right? I want him to do that. Okay, how am I showing up for myself that way? How am I working my butt off for me? How am I appreciating me. Do you see that? Like that connection? Like when we get really, really dialed in and we say, okay, here's this relationship. And this is why relationships are so incredible for self-growth. If you can start looking at them this way, here's this relationship in my life. It's a very key relationship. And there are certain ways that this person is reacting or showing up that is influencing me in a negative way. How do I want them to show up instead? And then if we say, am I showing up for myself that way? Whew, that was a little bit of a bite in the pants. I'm not gonna lie. I felt the kick of that one because I was like, my gosh, no, I'm not showing up that way. We can even talk about this in a money way, and this is why I say also boundaries are key in growing your business. Like so incredibly key. How do we want our money to show up for us? Constantly coming in 5 figures, right? I hear this all the time, every single month, 5 figures every single month. Okay. Are you showing up constantly with a 5 figure energy every month? Does that make sense? And so when we start looking at the results that we're getting, that we're like, I'm not okay with that result. And we can say, okay, what do I actually want? How do I want that to show up in my life? Am I showing up that way? Right? We start to come back to ourselves. We actually start to come back together because this is what it means to be your own best friend. Like I think about how I want a best friend to show up for me. Somebody who calls me out on my stuff, like totally calls me to the carpet because they love me so much. They are willing to do whatever I need them to do, but also respect their own time and energy. Like, I want my best friend to show up with confidence. I want my best friend to have my back, but also have her own back because, to be honest with you, it's exhausting to always have my back and everybody else's if they don't have their own, right? It's a lot easier to have somebody else's back if they already have theirs. And so I got thinking about these things like, how do I really want a best friend to show up for me in my life? I got crystal clear on that, and I started showing up that way. And what was incredible too is I also thought about like how a best friend saw me. How do I want that best friend to see me? I had to see myself that way. And I'll give an example when it comes to vision. So here I am, right now my mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical energy is actually better than it's been in a long time. But my physical energy still needs to come up. Working on nutrition. Matter of fact, right now as we're chatting, I have, and I'll show it to your audience, this fabulous little celery juice. It's a green juice, right? That I'm going to totally down as soon as we're done, right?
I'm so jealous.
I know, aren't you right? But it's like a health thing. It's really good for me. It's been very healthy, right? And so I'm making healthier choices for my body. But I could look at myself right now. I'm 5'3" and I am 210 pounds. Like, I'll just say it. I'm not ashamed of it, but I could be. And today's society, if I want to listen to society standards, I should be totally disgusted by myself. But I'm not. Because here's the thing, being your own best friend means you actually take a look at what's really true as well about who you are, what's happening, how life is showing up for you. You give yourself compassion, but you also hold yourself to some serious ownership standards. Number one, my body is not disgusting at all. For heck's sakes, it's given me 6 kids, right? What a wonderful thing. I could take a look at this inflammation in my body that's causing this weight gain and say, so gross. Or I could say, wow, my body's really trying to communicate with me. It's telling me it needs some things. Wow, it really has my back. It's trying to protect me through this inflammation. So what can I do to help it feel like it can calm down? Like it doesn't need to be in this fight or flight anymore. It's a whole different way of looking at this. Any way that makes me look at myself, that fractures me, to makes me think that, oh, I can't accept this piece. That's not being our own best friend. It's bringing these pieces back in, loving ourselves completely, loving all pieces of ourselves, not by society standards. Let's talk about by love standard. Really, truly loves standards, right? That's the standards I want to live by.
That's beautiful. That has been a big shift for me too, just seeing what has society been conditioning me to think or, to do, and really identifying those things and shifting it. I I'm very like faith driven. And so it's like, okay, what is God telling me about this? Like, what is his definition of this? Not the lies that they're trying to get me to believe, right? Which usually is going to end in the shame and the self-hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to get you anywhere.
Mm-mm.
It's not empowering. It's not going to get
Mm-mm.
you where you want to be at all.
No. And trust me, I've lived those
Yeah.
standards. And it's horrid.
It's
I never want to go
exhausting.
back. Yes,
Yeah.
I never want to go back. And yes, exactly. I'm very Christian. I love God. And when I say like love standards, that's literally the standard I'm
Yeah.
talking about. There's some people out there that don't believe in God. And so the question I have for you is, okay, so what is your highest form of love? It's not about higher power. It's not about higher good, even though God is very good. But love encompasses all of that, the power, the good. And this is honestly what people are looking for. Why am I worthy of love?
Mm.
Well, you've got to, and that's what people are asking,
Yeah.
literally. Well, then, if that's what you're asking, you've got to check into what is your highest form of love? What does it actually look like? To me, it is the being out there that knows how many hairs are on my head. I don't. I don't sit there and count them, right? Like to me, that's kind of a giant waste of time. But for him, it's like, I love you so much. I know how many eyelashes you have. I know how many bits of hair you have. I know which one's about ready to fall out, which one's ready to turn gray. I know like how many bits of bacteria are on your teeth. I know the good, the bad, and I don't think he even thinks the ugly, but he knows every bit of it. He's so in love with this that he grows a banana in Ecuador, fills it with the exact nutrition that your body is going to need the minute you ingest it, sends it to your grocery store so you buy it, and then you pick it up and you eat that banana that he grew for you in Ecuador. That's what I'm talking about when I say love. The all powerful, moving the cosmos being that sees you, not this little ant on the planet. He sees potential. He sees a goddess. He sees himself. That's what I'm talking about when I say love. And if we don't see ourselves in that view, something's broken.
I love that. And I love that you bring up that so many people out there feel like they need to prove. They need to prove that they're worth loving, that they're good enough. How has that shown up for you, kind of that proving energy? Because I feel like going back to like the society versus God or the higher love or, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in, that's the difference for me is society wants us to feel like we have to prove that we're good enough, prove that we're worthy of love
Mhm.
and prove our worth. And that is unconditional. Like you can't even prove it because it already exists. So how has that shown up for you?
Well, like number one, let's give ourselves a little grace with this one because I've been working on boundaries and healing trauma and healing from narcissistic abuse for, I want to say, easily 20 years at this point. But that prove it problem, and that's what I call it, is the prove it problem is so rampant, not even just in the way we grow up, but it's in our society, it's in our generations. It is everywhere, and it causes massive, massive trauma. But you want to think about this for a second. Everything on this earth has an opposite. And the reason why it has an opposite is because we have agency. Because we have agency, that means we get to make choices. Okay? Now, here's the deal. Do I want to live by society standards? And again, I very much believe in God. I love God and everything that He has done in my life. But if we're going to talk about society, we also need to talk about the adversary, that Satan, that's really what that standard is. Okay, he's the one that wants us to prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. If you take a look in the New Testament when Christ has been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, and that old bugger, he comes in and he tries to tempt our beautiful, fabulous, wonderful Savior. What does he tempt him with? Prove it. Prove that you're the Son of God. Prove that you are the Savior. Prove that you're powerful. Prove it, prove it, prove it. And what he does instead is he combats it. Like he doesn't even give it much thought. He simply says, for it is written. Well, what does that mean? It means truth. And if you take a look at truth, now we're going over into the God side of things. Truth does not need to be proven, for truth will always prove itself. Always, without fail. That has always been the case. I don't need to prove something to people. It will prove itself. It will, right? And Christ did this too. You think about the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He didn't try to prove he was Christ. He just let the truth prove itself. So thinking about that and applying that back to ourselves. Okay, here's the deal. If this is what God thinks about us, that he sees himself when he looks at us, he sees the very best of himself when he looks at us. Think about like something that you've created that you love, like my kids. They are my ultimate creation. I freaking adore them. I've got a cute little 4-year-old girl on the other side of this door right now in my office whose hair is curly as heck, totally all over the place because I haven't brushed it yet. She's bouncing around and over there. I can hear her. And here's the deal. Her hair is imperfect. She's still in her pajamas. Is she any less adorable to me? No. She is one of my ultimate creations. I see so much of myself in her. And that's what the connection of love is. Well, if that's the case, and God sees the truth, he creates the truth, and from truth, he creates the ultimate miracle, which would be us. We are ultimate miracles. Then we don't have to prove that. And I'll tell you, it's already been proven because if that's the case, if God is truth and he's love, then truth and love must also be one and the same. Okay? And he's already proved our worth. The Savior himself died on the cross, the most perfect being that ever lived, so that you had worth, that way you could understand that you didn't have to worry about justice. You didn't have to worry about like all the negative things that are showing up in this world. All you needed to really realize and remember was how powerful and perfect and miraculous you actually already are. That's just what he wants us focusing on. But if we're feeling broken, right, or if we're feeling torn, that's a boundary issue. That is us considering and even adopting a lie, something that's not true. Because if we're not seeing ourselves to that degree, we got some work to do.
Yeah, I really, really love that. I love that you give that example of Christ in the scriptures, and he wasn't concerned about proving that he was good enough or that he was who he said he was, or that he needed to be liked, or that he needed to be successful, or that he was good enough because he was achieving this or that. And the adversary, like, why? Why does he want us stuck in that? Because it keeps us stuck.
Yes.
It keeps us from the truth. And if we fully embrace that truth, we are unstoppable. And if we are preoccupied with feeling the need to prove what we don't need to prove, then we're just going in circles.
So, yes, absolutely. Because you think about it, our adversaries don't like us, right? They don't like us at all. But in a way, an adversary is also terrified of the truth. That's why they become adversarial. To give you an example, I have someone in my life, I love them, but I choose to not really engage too much with them. Okay, because they're very adversarial towards me. Last year, my business hit 6 figures, my coaching business did. And that was a threat for some reason to this person. When I mentioned that on my podcast, that person reached out to me and called me a liar immediately. Like, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. And they wanted me to prove it to the point that I opened up my bank accounts, showed them my bank accounts, posted them online so that way everybody knew that I was a liar. And I was like, why are you wanting me to prove something, number one, that is true, but even if it wasn't, like, what is the big deal to you? Like, why are you so offended by this? And what it is because of the fear. That person is afraid of success. That person is afraid of greatness. That person is afraid of what I'm doing. There's a fear. The adversary is the same way. He's terrified of your success. Because here's the deal. Okay. If you take a look at the beliefs that he had me spinning 20 years ago, number one, I wouldn't be alive. He wanted me dead before I figured out who I was. He wanted me to do that first and foremost. He wanted me to consistently try to prove myself to everyone around me, but it never worked, ever. They didn't want to see that. He wanted me consistently spinning my wheels because I never would have taken my business to 6 figures. And the reason why I took my business to 6 figures, and I'm heading 7 figures this year, the reason why is because of the lives I've changed, the lives that I've literally ripped out of his grasp and given back to the Lord because of my influence. He doesn't want us to do that. He wants us to stay in confusion to stay in these cycles that keep pulling us downward. And in the scriptures, it talks about leading us carefully down to hell. Well, I will tell you that was a whole type of hell that I never want to be in again. But where I'm at now, I'm actually claiming my greatness. I'm claiming how amazing I am. And if you look at the Lord's languaging in scriptures, I am that I am. I am the Savior Jesus Christ, He that created the world. He declares who He is, and He's not ashamed to do it. And there are people that left Him because of it, and He let them go. He didn't beg them to stay. There was a time even in the New Testament where I don't know that you necessarily see that the Savior's faltering, but you can feel a little bit of that vulnerability when the people turned around and left him because he refused to be their king. And the king, I should say, in the way that they wanted him to be king. And he looks at Simon Peter and he says, "Will you leave me too?" And just that little feeling of that vulnerability that, I've wondered that before. Who else is going to leave me? The Savior loved those people, and you could feel like a little piece of him hurt, a little wounded because they left. But I love Simon's answer. "You are the Christ. We know you're the Christ. Why on earth would we leave you? You have the power. You have the word." We're looking for our Simon Peters, not for the people that are going to leave us. We're looking for our Simon Peters. They still have moments of weakness, right? When the Savior was on trial, it was Simon Peter that denied him 3 times. But it was also Simon Peter that wept bitterly because he denied the Savior 3 times. People are imperfect, but we're not looking for the people that are going to leave us, and we definitely should not be one of them. We need to be our own Simon Peter. We need to be the one that has our own back. Even in those little moments of vulnerability and even in those little moments of weakness, that is when we declare who we are.
Well, and I think you hit on an important point that when other people react to our success or to our confidence or whatever that may be that is positive, or us changing to become better, it's based in fear. And it's like a mirror. They're holding up a mirror to the person that they feel threatened by or that they feel that fear from, and it's reflecting that back to them, what they can't see in themselves, or that they want to see in themselves, but they aren't there yet. And so it's very much rooted in fear. And so I think that's a really important thing to remember is when you are experiencing that lack of support from people, or when they are asking you to prove it, and putting you in that spot of you feeling like you have to prove yourself for external validation, to remember they are holding up a mirror, and it is not about me, it is about them. And they, it's fearful for them. And it's like the Let Them, right? Like, I don't know if you've read Let Them by
But I believe, yes, I've
You've
heard
heard
it
about
times.
it,
Yes,
because it's huge. But it's that concept of, okay, let them, right? I can't control what they do. Let them, if that's how they choose to respond, because they haven't done the work, because they're scared, because they lack the confidence, let them. And then let me choose to respond in this way, and to stay rooted in my identity, stay rooted in who I know that I am, and the fact that, I've built this self-trust and I am my own best friend, and let me stay rooted in those boundaries that I've, established.
And the thing is again, in the scriptures, it talks about stand ye in holy places, stand ye in places of light. Well, if we love ourselves, everywhere we stand is a holy place. Literally, it is always a place of light. It is always a place of goodness, always. And so that's literally what it means to stand ye in holy places. Know yourself, love yourself. See yourself the way I see you. And going back to like the people that are holding up that mirror of fear, think about this. You are driving to some sort of a destination. You're in your car, you get in, you are on a road heading somewhere. This is a boundary, right? You already know where you're headed. You know where you want to go and how you want to get there. If you stay on that road, you're going to eventually get there, right? But now think about somebody else who comes around like passing you at 150 miles an hour, and they hit maybe a patch of ice, or they hit some water or something like that, and they start spinning out of control. Right. Do we speed up, try to jump out of our car and run to their out of control vehicle and try to take back control so they don't crash? No, we slow down, we stop. Yeah, they are going to crash. They're going off the road, Maybe they're going off the road for a bit. Maybe they flip a few times, but we are the ones that stop. We're the ones that call in, hey, there was a crash, right? We call in the help, right? Now, what does that look like in a physical, logical sense, right? When somebody's freaking out, that's literally what they're doing. They've hit a patch of ice. For some reason, they're blaming you for that hitting that patch of ice and their bad driving. They're careening out of control. Why on earth do we feel like we need to jump ship and try to take control of their vehicle? It doesn't work that way. We have to let them crash. Because when they crash, that's when we can call in the help, which is called prayer. This is why I say, like, I don't take on other people's justice. They already have a savior that did that for them. But if I believe that this is possible for me, I also believe that this is possible for them. And so in those cases, for someone that's been in a crash because they weren't driving smart, right? You have to leave them in the hands of the paramedics. I am not the one that's supposed to save their lives. I'm the one that's supposed to call in the help, right? Leave them in the hands of the paramedic. That's what it means to let them. If we're going to get really dialed in and clear, but that doesn't mean that as soon as I get back in my car, the paramedics are taking over. I start driving like them either. It means I get back on the road to my destination. And I'm still praying for them the whole time.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Yes.
Stay in your lane and don't try to take on those roles that you are not qualified, to take on or that you don't need to take on because that's getting you out of your power. That's getting you out of where you should be and the path that you should be on. So I love that. Like, know your role and do that and act on that, right? To call in the help, but don't try to take on these other roles that are going to cause burnout and not going to ultimately help because you are not the one who's called to do that.
No, like I said, I mean, think about it. Like, I'm still on this whole trying to take over somebody else's out of control car. Like, if you try to do that, number one, your car is going to crash because who the heck is the driver there? Okay, number two, most likely you're going to get ran over a few times, right? And the other guy's still going to crash. And now both of you are in a bad situation. It's a lot healthier. And this is why I also say that boundaries are the kindest thing possible. You can't call in the help if you're the one that's been run over.
Yeah.
You just can't. And so allowing someone else their own experience, allowing somebody else to feel what they need to feel. I had to feel what I needed to feel in order to become who I am today. I needed to experience the crashing in order to know how to drive. I had to experience these things, so why on earth would I take that away from someone else? I wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that they have to bring their wrecked car and park it in my driveway. Like, it doesn't mean that at all. I'm not going to fix it for them. Their actions have to be what fixes their problem. I can't do it. And so when we understand this and we realize that people pleasing is a type of control. The leaky boundaries is a type of control, right? We cannot control what other people do at all, but we absolutely can control what we do. And when we understand this, it builds the unbreakable boundary.
Yeah, why would we take like that experience away from them, that growth opportunity, that learning experience? And it's hard because we know that it's going to be difficult. We know that it's going to be painful at times. And so sometimes we have those seemingly good intentions, right? We want to spare them. I think I resonate that as a mom, as a mom, like from a parent standpoint, completely. Like, you want to spare them and you have good intentions, and yet you are depriving them of those experiences that are going to help them grow and become closer to God and be more empowered and confident. And you're robbing them of all of those lessons and all of those great things that are going to come, and the resilience. And if we just always step in and by doing that, sacrifice our own well-being and all of that. And so it's like, it actually, it totally benefits both parties to just allow, right? And let them and let it happen. And then I can help in the way that I can.
Yes, exactly. And you hit on something. Like, my kids are my world. I love my kids, every single last one of them. But even with them, I don't rescue. I absolutely refuse to rescue them. And I will even say so much, like, intentions are when we do something on purpose, when we're actually mindful about what we're doing. And so I think we have good expectations, but I think intentionality is something that is definitely in our conscious mind, right? And so my intentions are for them to grow, if that makes sense. It's not to rescue them. It's not for them to not feel pain, even though it's painful for me to watch. My cute senior, he's adorable. He's the sweetest kid. Good little driver, good kid in on so many ways, but he's having to deal with some decisions he made right now as a freshman. He had to go to a completely different school to finish his senior year. The last 2 months of his senior year, he's having to go to another school to get his graduated credits. And so he doesn't get to graduate with the kids that he's gone through, from kindergarten all the way to, because he's having to deal with himself when from a few years ago, he didn't do what he needed to do. Right? He decided to play, decided to goof off, and now it's come back to bite him in the butt because he doesn't have the credits he needs to graduate. But I could I could try to rescue him. And we talked and we were like, okay, what are all of our options here? Because you've got a big problem. You do want to graduate and you want to graduate with your class, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Like we're going to deny ourselves this once in a lifetime opportunity, which is really sad, right? There was no other option. He had to go. In order for him to graduate on time, he had to go. But what I've noticed with him, with me kind of being like, okay, this is what has to happen. Yeah, you're going to miss out on this. He's finding that he's missing out on a once in a lifetime opportunity, yes, but he's gaining a lifetime opportunity instead, meaning he's now gaining the opportunity to have his back. I've never seen that kid have his own back like he has in the last few weeks since he had to move. He's getting in, he's getting stuff done, he is dedicated, and he's literally like holding himself to a whole new standard. I'd rather have that for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because that's going to serve him.
Mhm.
That's something that will serve him throughout the rest of his life. It's such an important lesson, and how awesome that you guys can all reframe that to, oh, look at what he's gaining through this instead of focusing on what he's losing or what he's missing out on.
Mhm.
It's like, look at the awesome lesson, the awesome skills that
Mhm.
he's learning from this. I think that's
Mhm.
so powerful when we can reframe those things that might seem negative at first, might seem like a loss or a hardship, and we can reframe that to, okay, how is this going to help me? How is this going to benefit me? How can I use this in other situations? These things that I've learned. And yes, it was hard to learn, but I can also appreciate that I was able to learn.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what he's doing. But he wouldn't have done that if I would have tried to swoop in and rescue him.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so, like, another one of my personal boundaries as a mom who loves my kids is I love them enough to let them fall on their face, right? To let them learn from their own experiences, because I could tell him, and I did tell him, dude, like, if you don't get serious about your schoolwork, if you don't get in and get things done, as a freshman, I told him this. As a senior, bud, you're probably not going to get to graduate. Well, people don't learn by what we tell them. People learn through their own experience. They have to have experiences in order to learn. And so it's not up to me to make them experience something better, but by living true to me, by living my own life, man, do I ever get to influence the experience.
I love that you are leading by example in that way and teaching that to your kids. I think that's so powerful and will serve them so well throughout the rest of their lives. That's something I'm also working on as a parent. So it's a lifelong,
Yeah.
lesson to detach from that, wanting to control things for good or for bad.
Well, like I said, we don't want to see people suffer when they refuse not to.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? They have to have that experience, apparently. But what's really awesome is again we get to decide who we are in those moments too, right? That we can come back to the boundary again. I'm loving, I'm kind. At least he's got a safe spot, a soft spot to land, a listening ear, somebody that's gonna have his back while he has to go through it. And it's the same thing and this is why like relationships have grown also around me since I've done this. Your relationships will reflect things inside of you in a big way. And this is why also people will tell you that boundaries are the thing that keeps people away from you. And that might be a result, like I said, the person that demanded my banking information, and for me to air that banking information to the world, that's foolish. I would never do that. Well, that person is somebody that, even though I love dearly, I very much do, they're better off in a distance. I'm not going to change who I am to make that person happy because that's not possible. That person doesn't want to be happy. That person just wants to be judgmental. That person wants me to be unhappy. That person wants me to suffer so they can have some sort of glee,
Yeah.
right?
Or they can feel better about themselves. Yeah.
For whatever reason, right? Or like that's not the way to do it. And they don't want to do that. Okay, cool. That created distance.
Mm-hmm.
That created distance because that person is choosing to show up this way and I'm choosing to show up this way. It's just going to create distance naturally. But what it has done is the people that truly do want to be a part of my life, me setting my boundary, meaning loving myself. Boundaries are self-love. They are 110,000% about how you love yourself, how you show up for you. And because I have those really, really high boundaries, I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations. Right? I'm not afraid to tell people, I'm not okay with this. I'm not afraid to tell people what it looks like to be in my space, to be very clear with them and give them the chance to choose in. And if they choose in, guess what? They get to be at their best selves too and like themselves too. Who doesn't want that? Or they can choose out because they're not ready.
Thank you for sharing all of that and your experiences. I know that I took a lot of value from that and something I need to definitely implement more of in my life. So tell us what you are working on right now. What do you have coming up?
So right now I am working on a online course, something that somebody can take on their own time, work through at their own schedule. Granted, I would also say give yourself a timeline to be done, but um it's called Building the Unbreakable Boundary. And so we're going to talk more about like what a boundary is, how to build them, and also get in and how to use them to start calling in more cash, more of what it is you say you want, like really manifest your desires. Like that's literally what happens when you have really, really good boundaries. It doesn't, they're massive in manifestation. So that's what I'm building right now. Right now, I actually have it for about $600 off because I'm building it. So if you guys want it, you can reach out to Erin Anderson at erinanderson-coaching.com. And just let me
we'll
know
link
if you
it.
want that.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. So you guys can reach out to me that way. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm also working on a book. It's called The 7 Pillars of Living the Unashamed Life. And so if you guys want to change your perceptions and get out of feeling all this adversarial energy that's coming at you, that book will also be out probably, I want to say by fall would be my guess. I'm hoping.
Oh, that's huge. Oh, I love that for you. That's so exciting. I'm looking forward to reading that. Well, I just have a few rapid fire questions for you. What is a quote or a mantra that you live by?
Quote that I live by. This is totally going to air my religion to you, but it's actually by Ezra Taft Benson, and I can actually read it exactly for you. He says, men and women who turn their lives over to God will discover that He can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. He can deepen their joys, expand their visions, quicken their minds, strengthen their muscles, lift up their spirits, multiply their blessings, increase their opportunities, comfort their souls, and pour out peace. I love that because that was everything I wanted. And giving my life over to God every single time I've leaned into doing His will for me, I have found so much more than I ever could have expected.
I love that quote. What is one thing on your bucket list that you haven't checked off yet?
Oh, I would say out of country travel. I've definitely traveled throughout the United States. I actually just barely, and you know this, I just barely got back from South Carolina last week, but I haven't traveled outside of the US yet, but that's coming up soon.
How do you stay grounded when life gets overwhelming?
Actually, you're talking about my 7 pillars.
Yeah.
Overwhelm is actually the fourth adversary, and the opposite of overwhelm is play. And so if life is getting overwhelming for me, that is a sure sign, a sure signal that number one, boundaries need to come in, but also play hard.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Goodness, how's about a bunch of? I'm thinking like Round Table, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Martha Washington, like lots of these really amazing historical figures. Some of my ancestors. Yeah, I love
round
history.
table. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
Round Table.
changing mine to that. Yeah, I don't want just one person. I want a whole round table. I love that.
Mhm.
All right, and then how do you define success in your life?
Success is defined by how we feel. Absolutely. And honestly, success is also called in by how we feel. And so if we're not feeling confident, if we're not feeling amazing, if we're not feeling like the miracle we are, then we're going to struggle a bit with some successful strategies. We're going to struggle a little bit with success. And so if success is something you're struggling with, one of the things I would definitely tell you to do is check your mindset.
Thank you so much for being here today, for being on the podcast and having this amazing conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me, Michaela. It's a beautiful podcast. Thank you.
If today's episode stirred something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your takeaways, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep uncovering what's possible when you stop proving and start becoming. You don't have to prove your worth. You're here to prove what's possible when you fully own who you were divinely designed to be. Live with faith, lead with boldness, prosper with purpose. Prove it.